You're listening to Passing Time, a Detroit Lions podcast. We're one pride and all grit, with a passion for Detroit Lions football. Whether you're between meetings, between classes, sitting in traffic, or just relaxing at home, if you have time to pass, pass it with Passing Time. Detroit Lions Talk.
Hey, welcome to Passing Time. My name's Rob. This is Brian.
I'm Brian.
This is a new pod we're going to try out. Brian, you want to tell us where this all got developed?
Well, so we started this, or the thoughts of getting this started came from the passing time between classes. I'm an educator, so between each class, I was talking to a colleague of mine, and it was all Lions all the time. And we thought, to fill your passing time, what better way than a quick little pod to fill the time with a couple fans and talking about the Lions.
Yeah, so I'm in finance. Brian and I are always talking Lions, talking Tigers, talking Red Wings, and I bring that to work. And I have guys that we're talking to at the water cooler. You got 45 seconds. You're filling your cup of coffee. And this is just meant for that kind of fodder. You know, two guys sitting at the bar thinking they know better. And we're not claiming to be insiders. So the kind of the scoop here is just two regular junkies, love the Lions, talking football with you.
Here we go.
Here we go. So plan of attack for us is do a weekly pod, and we will do emergency pods when trades happen, injuries happen, draft happens throughout the course of the year. What we're asking from you is we want to make this interactive. So leave some feedback, good, bad, indifferent. Please, you have a chance to be the first subscriber or the second subscriber, the third subscriber. So subscribe. We will show you lots of love at the beginning because you're the ones to show love to. And let us know, what are you talking about? What are you hearing? What are you thinking? What kind of feedback do you want to leave us on the podcast? Sound right?
Absolutely. Sounds good. And so, yeah, we're just going to get rolling. Hopefully it's quick. Your travels to work, your time at the cooler, and your time between classes. So
you put the kids down to bed and you got 15 minutes before you can close your eyes at sleep. Tune in.
Let's go.
Today is going to be pretty draft heavy. We are just a few days away from the NFL draft, so we're going to get into it a little bit and talk maybe what are some big Lions needs going into this year.
So I'd tell you the biggest need right now, in my opinion, is that interior offensive line. I mean, if you look at somebody that's going to come in and start right away, it's going to be the competition with Graham Glasgow and with Christian Mahogany, and filling those needs or filling that interior offensive line would be number one. Number two,
Mahogany looked pretty good at the end of the year last year.
But it was a small sample size, right? They keep saying like 2 games is not a season made, right? So I'd love to have him continue to play that consistently, but there's still question marks there, right? And Graham is coming off one of his lower seasons. The season before, great, amazing, right? Resurgent. Last season, a little bit took a step back. So is he going to be the starter again coming into 25, or is he going to be a great support system where he can fill in at guard on either side or center if need be? So
Taylor Decker's not getting any younger. There's got to be a plan for him at some point.
At some point, you look at Gio Manu. Is he going to be a guy that's we drafted him as a developmental guy? Is he going to be a guy that can support? Is Dan Skipper going to be the third tackle and the only tackle? You got some question marks there too. So
man, the Lions are really feeling themselves in that project offensive tackle last year. They're not going to give up on him that quick, right? They're going to give him a couple of years here.
Absolutely. I mean, the guy's a monster. The guy's an athlete. He has all the intangibles. He's got the grit. But does he have the skill? Coming from a lower level system, he has a long way to go.
We also have, we just re-signed Tim Patrick at wide receiver. That's probably not the key to a championship team to trot him out there. Who's going to complement J-Mo? Who's going to complement Amon-Ra? Is that a potential need? Because we've been seeing a lot of guys getting mocked at the end of the round or at the end of the first round that are wide receivers to the Detroit Lions.
I mean, you hear that a lot. You hear that, from Brad Holmes that we want to get younger. Dan Campbell, we have to get some youth in that room. And you have question marks, right? We have J-Mo going into his 4th year of his contract. Are we going to extend that or, get that 5th year with him? he's going to be expensive moving forward. So what's the long-term plan there?
I think barring some off-field stuff with JMO, he's going to get his 5th year. I don't know if he gets years beyond that, right?
That's the question, right? Because this year I think he stays with Detroit. There's been a lot of clamor right now about trading him sometime in the draft and getting something in return, because this is a good time with 2 years on his contract to get something in return for that. But what is the return? What you see is like a third rounder, and in my opinion, Jim was worth way more in a third round. He's coming off 1,000+ yards. He is a difference maker. He is a game changer.
As fans of the teams, we love to mock our own trades, right? And I'm thinking, JMO, get me a first rounder for JMO, but other teams don't always feel the same way about your possessions, right?
Right. I mean, he's still got those off the field question marks, which keep teams a little apprehensive of him. So
he is definitely worth more to the Lions than a potential third round lottery ticket that the third round is going to present.
Unless you can guarantee me an Amon-Ra again, and that we got him in that fourth round in that later times, if you can guarantee me something like that, then sure. But if there's no guarantees when it comes to this stuff, so
there are certainly no guarantees. For every Amon-Ra, I can give you 10 other guys that were not at the same success level as
right.
he was. You want to talk a little bit about some draft crushes?
Sure.
We all have our draft crush, right? I
right.
mean, you got your draft crush, but Brian's been talking a little bit about a couple of his.
One of the last needs I think the Lions, and then we've all talked about a million times, is edge, right? We all wanted to go out and get Myles Garrett. We wanted to get Max Crosby. We wanted to bring in Trey Hendrickson and make that huge splash trade. But the reality is this draft has a ton of options, starter wise. Maybe not the Max Crosbys, maybe not the Trey Hendricksons, maybe not the Myles Garretts, but they have a lot of serviceable guys that will fill a major need. My draft crush has always been Shamar Stewart, and kind of got like knocked down a little bit because Eric Schlick comes out with his grit index, and Shamar Stewart's in that fourth tier, and I'm like kind of sad about it, right? He is huge. He is all the metrics. He is a combine hero, but he didn't have the production in college, and that showed in his grit index, right? He didn't come through as a gritty guy in that. So
for the listeners, what is this grit index that you're talking about?
Well, they combined a bunch of writings and a bunch of verbiage that comes along and is everything to do with being leaders, being passionate, being work ethic, and being a gritty player, right? So they combined all of this stuff in a bunch of the beat writers. They put it into a formula and they spit it out with a number, and Shamar Stewart just didn't score as high as I would have hoped.
So it's AI taking all this information. If somebody says something gritty about a guy, they're getting a plus, and if they say something not so good, they're getting a minus, right?
Absolutely. So it combines all of this stuff, and they weigh different metrics. They weigh different writers, and Jack Sawyer got one of the highest edge. And I'm not gonna lie, I being a Michigan guy, don't want Jack Sawyer on my team. Do I think he's gritty? Probably. He's probably one of the grittiest guys, but I just don't think he's a perfect fit for the Detroit Lions, whether he's an Ohio State guy or a Michigan guy. So.
Yeah. So if you want to know what your grit index is, just open up your social media. Whatever's advertising to you, that's what the microphones are picking up on you. So you need a new pair of Viore joggers, Rob. That's what I'm seeing. But these guys, this is what all the podcasters are saying. This is what they're tough guys. And can you give me an example of maybe somebody that's at the top of the grit index?
Oh man, Tyler Booker, interior offensive line for Alabama. Like blew it out of the park. 97 point, on that grit index out of 100. And
he wants to make you quit football, right? Like his quote is, hey, when you play against me, I want you to quit football after you're done with me, which is that's a gritty quote.
That's a gritty quote. I mean, that's a Dan Campbell guy. That's a Brad Holmes guy. That's a need, and it's it fits that grit index, right? Now, the tricky thing about Tyler Booker is the question marks are his athleticism, right? Is he going to be able to pull? Is he be able to get to that second level? In my opinion, if you play that right side next to Penei Sewell, might not need to pull as much. I mean, Penei might be doing those more intricate pulls and blocking schemes where if he's playing maybe the left side, might need to do a little bit more of that finesse work where, working next to Taylor Decker might need that. But Tyler Booker to me is a lion. If we drafted him at 28, I'd be ecstatic.
And I'm looking at the aggregate. He's getting mocked all around in the 20s, into the late 20s. So he's a
Yep,
real possibility for the Lions.
that's correct.
Is he a guy? Do you know anything? Can he slide in and play guard and slide out and play tackle, or is that one of the weak
Seems
spots
like
for
a
him?
bigger guy. Seems like more of a guard than anything else. He's not necessarily a Donovan Jackson from Ohio State who could be an outside, could play tackle, could play guard. He's not a Gray Zabel who can basically play everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But he is a big, strong man that is going to, again, like you said, make you hate football. So
Yeah.
it's kind of exciting feeling to get. So
Yeah, and why can't the Lions just take a first round pick or a package and go get a Trey Hendrickson? Fundamentally, what's wrong with the roster and the contract situation to prevent something like that from happening?
listen, we've drafted so well that we had to start paying guys. You think about 2 years ago, we got 4 first round prospects in the first 2 rounds, right? You're thinking Jameer Gibbs, you're thinking Jack Campbell, you're thinking Brian Branch, and you're thinking Sam Laporta. And how do you pay all 4 of those guys while going out and paying 2 DNs top money? Because you were going to pay Hutch top money as well. So getting a Trey Hendrickson and bringing him in, as much as I would salivate and love and think that we are going to be unstoppable, it just financially doesn't make sense. We have Kirby Joseph, who is going to need an extension. You have like we have a lot of really talented, amazing Pro Bowl type players, all pro type players that are going to need to get paid.
But why not sell out for this year, right? There's a big argument last year, like go get Max Crosby, whether that was even realistic or not when Hutch got hurt. He is basically Max, right? And
it sounds like Brad made that call. It's just you're not going to give up a Max Crosby. If somebody called the Lions and said, "Hey, give me Hutch," we're not taking that call. We're not saying, "Yeah, that's a good idea."
Yeah.
We're going to keep Hutch because he's the face of our franchise. He is the guy that's getting, he's going to get 17 plus sacks this year, right?
Yeah.
And he's going to come off his injury and he's going to do amazing things. So I think we forget that Hutch is a top tier defensive end, and he's going to come off an injury healthy, and he's going to contribute, and he's going to be that Max Crosby, that Trey Hendrickson, that Miles Garrett that we were looking for last year.
He had a big injury at Michigan. He came back very strong the year after the injury. We've all seen the video of him. Look like he's running the weave up and down. I don't know what kind of football move that was, but he looked strong. He looked fast. It's exciting to see him back out there running.
And it makes you feel good. It looks better than the first time where he had a hitch in his step, and we were a little like, oh, man, he would not have been ready for the Super Bowl. But now it's looking more likely that he's going to be ready for OTAs and preseason. So
what a Hutchinson thing to get people hyped up. Like, hey, if we make the Super Bowl, I'm going to be ready. There was probably zero chance.
I would say there's a glimmer of chance. And, we have some guys that we're going to talk to later in this pod that they're doctors, they're physical therapists, that we're going to be able to spitball with them and say, hey, what's the likelihood that Hutch will be back? And, they're good dudes. They're friends of ours. So we'll bring them on and we'll have them give their expertise.
That's a good tease. Yeah, we do have some things lined up here. So I'm gonna help host this podcast. Brian he's got a friend at work in the teaching profession that really this whole thought originated with. And we have a couple other guys that are just passionate junkies about football. So maybe there'll be one of us one time, or 2 of us, or 3 of us, and we can phone a friend with a doc or a physical therapist to talk about injuries. So if you have questions that relate to that, please throw them out there. That being said, let's turn the tables. This draft's coming up. What are some really positive things that could happen early in this draft to get the Lions to have some options later on in that first round?
So Lions are good in a couple spots, right? They're good quarterback. I mean, Jared Goff is extended. We're fine there. We're not looking for
He's starting to look cheap.
We're not 100%. But we're not looking for a dart. We're not looking for a Milrow. We're okay at the quarterback position.
But a couple of years ago, we were looking for a hooker, right?
Right. Yeah. We'll keep hooking the back room. All right, we'll bring them out when we need them. Right now, we are hoping that the more quarterbacks that go in that first round before us, the better, right? Or we're sitting at 28 and somebody's itching to get their that 5th year for their quarterback. They can come up and we can trade back, right? So there's some of those things. I don't think we're going to be in the market for running backs. So the more running backs that go in that first round before us, the better.
So let's pause right there. Let's go back. Quarterbacks always get steamed up. And the Lions made it cool to draft a running back in the first round again after Brad Holmes took a lot of heat for that move. He just hit a home run on that one. But let's talk a little bit. You got the number one pick is going to be a quarterback, and then you got Shedeur Sanders, and he's been mocked anywhere from the Giants early in round one to somewhere late round one, even round two. But you have a few other guys here, and if you remember last year, Michael Penix wasn't really projected to be a surefire first round pick. Bo Nix maybe was a first round pick, wasn't a surefire first round pick. Quarterbacks are always getting steamed up. They have the most value to teams if they can get them on this rookie deal, and if they hit, that team has a chance to really run. So, how many quarterbacks could go in the first round?
That's the question mark, right? I mean, I'm thinking probably two, but if there's an that you get that fire, if you get steamed up enough, it could be possibly five, right? You could look at Cleveland coming up and getting one. You look at New York Giants getting one. You look at Pittsburgh, if they don't figure things out with Aaron Rodgers, they could get one. You got the Titans are going to get one. You have plenty of teams that are searching for their guy, right? And we know that any franchise without a quarterback, they're nothing, right? In this league, you don't have your quarterback, then you're looking for your quarterback.
Yeah.
And they're going to extend, they're going to overdraft, they're going to reach for some of these guys that might not go or should not go in that first round. So
and you got Tyler Shuck, he's getting a lot of praise. You got Jalen Milroe. I've heard a lot of people say he might not be your guy this year, but he's running a 4.3 in the combine. You can put him in a couple packages. He can help your team this year, and they're kind of hoping that maybe he gets that Jalen Hurts treatment where you're weaving him in, you're weaving him out, and then all of a sudden in year 2 or year 3, he's ready to take the reins, and that's exciting.
It's tempting, right? I mean, it's tempting to get that guy under control for 5 years. So hopefully one of those guys gets off the board before us too.
Yeah, and I'm not excited personally about those names. So let those guys get steamed up, let them get drafted, and I would love it if somebody threw something at the Lions at 28. If we have a couple guys on the board that we can get early second round and make that move.
And so if we moved back, what does that look like? Some of these charts say move back to a 33 or 34 plus get another third round pick in that process. You ask yourself, is that appealing to get those type of picks in this draft? And I think yes, because this draft, what you hear is it's not superstars, it's starters, right? So, and you can get starters from that 7th pick all the way through like 100. And so the more picks you get between those two is going to be better for the Lions.
Yeah.
And that means that we have 4 years worth of cheap production. And I think that really is going to help the Lions in that crunch time when we have to pay guys like Kirby and so on that we talked about. So.
Yeah, and I mean, you have a couple tight ends that are going to go in the top, probably 20, 25 picks. You got a handful of quarterbacks that could go. You got a couple wide receivers that can go. Potentially 2 running backs that are kind of getting talked about, maybe 3 running backs. So there's a handful of options to really push some of these really good DNs, D tackles, linebackers, the Lions.
And then you think about corner as well. I mean, corner is another one of those positions that we drafted a lot last year, or we put a lot of our efforts into getting Carlton Davis, getting Robertson, and bringing in then Terrion Arnold and Ennis Rakestraw. And I think we did that again this year, and I think we're stronger with that position this year. So it's not as much of a position of need. Now, if one of those top prospects falls to us, would we take them? Yeah, that's another question mark. In my opinion, I don't think so. I would try to get, like we said, trade back and get out of there. But that's Brad Holmes has done crazier things. So.
Yeah. So one final touch on this. You give me your draft crush. Mine, as a big Michigan fan as well, it's big Kenneth Grant out of Maryville, Indiana. Came to Michigan. Mike McDonald, Seattle's head coach, was the D coordinator. When Kenneth Grant came to Michigan, that was the year before their national championship team. And he said, hey, this kid, actually, I think Harbaugh said his quote was, he's a gift from the football gods. That was the first great quote on Kenneth Grant. He comes in with Mason Graham, they're 3-and-out D tackles, which is pretty rare. They played a lot of football in Ann Arbor. But Mike McDonald talked about Kenneth Grant. He said, he's not the best defensive tackle, even in this freshman class at Michigan. He's not the best defensive tackle on the team, but someday that guy is going to be the best defensive tackle in the NFL. End quote. And all you saw was this guy chasing down running backs, making plays, living in the backfield. Man, you can never have enough interior line depth, whether it's on the offensive side or the defensive side. If you get a guy like that, making the rest of your players better. I know we think we're pretty deep in the draft. We got a couple guys that have had some pretty significant injury history. But right there, that's my draft crush. I'll throw another one, Will Johnson. You talked about cornerback. Man, he's been getting mocked top 10 all the way to the back end of the first round. So it's just going to be so interesting to see where some of these guys go.
And to see where the Lions put their draft board, right? We kind of figure out what we think is going to be our draft board. We use the grid index, we use RAS, we use all these kind of metrics to try to figure out what we think is. But we don't get to talk to these guys. We hope that they're Lions type guys. We hope that they're football players and they're our guys, but you just don't know.
Yeah. Let's kick it. Let's throw it around the NFC North real quick. Let's just talk about a little bit of where the other foes in the NFC North are drafted, maybe what some of their needs are, and maybe we'll start with the Chicago Bears, who are off-season national champions already, with signing a Hall of Fame offensive tackle or two, and really trying to build their team through free agency. They're trotting out their new coach, their shiny object coach, and a few other guys from the Detroit Lions staff, who I'm excited for. But what are some needs for the Bears?
Well, you look at the Bears, and they did redo their offensive line, and they did so quickly through free agency. And I'm not going to lie, they did a good job with that. Now, you don't build championships through free agency. You build championships through the draft, right? You draft guys and develop them, and so they got some work to do. But they're drafting at 10, and I would say that they're just salivating for Genty, to fall to them, a running back to do running back things in a Ben Johnson offense, right? So does that mean Swift is gonna? How does that look for their offense? I don't know, but I would say that they would try to replicate as much as they could. In which the Lions did last year or the years before. So
yeah. For a little bit, it was taboo to draft a running back in that, top part of the draft. Saquon looks so good. He changed the game for the Eagles. Obviously, our Lions are throwing out a couple really good running backs, making it look good. And Gibbs, maybe Ben's trying to catch that Gibbs magic, and that's hard to do. Yeah. But real quick, Genty's been he could go to the Jaguars where the Jaguars picking at 5. That's a real big possibility.
And the thing is, I don't think he gets past the Raiders at 6 either. Yeah. So it'd be a move to go get them. Now they have the draft capital to do that. But if it doesn't work out, I think they have to fall back. It's continue to build in their trenches and offense and defensive line, and work interior out. Yeah. I would say. The Bears, and that's probably their focus. So
yeah, and he's not getting past the Cowboys probably if it gets to 12, but that's pretty exciting. So next, if we think about foes in the North, let's talk a little bit about the Packers.
Packers, they need wide receiver. They need DBs.
They don't draft wide receivers in round 1, right? That's kind of like their thing, right?
They don't, and look at what the issues they have, right? They don't have the man at wide receiver to go and change a game. So, in my opinion, I hope they continue to do what they're doing and, keep being third in the division, right? So
keep being third in the division. Yeah, it's been so long since they haven't won that division.
Love it. So, I think they are looking at corner. I think they're looking at wide receiver. And you look at guys like Maxwell Harrison and, his speed in the combine, and I think that he would appeal to them. Gerard Barron would be another guy that would appeal to them at that spot if he falls. So
yeah. What about the Vikings? Because they are, man, if JJ if they're just this quarterback centric offense and this coach has got the quarterback position figured out and they can plug JJ in, he can give you what Darnold gave you last year. They're a pretty scary team.
They are, and they have a good already built roster, right? They're only coming into the draft with 4 picks. So they are probably I mean, they're looking to build again from their interior. They need some more D line. They need some offensive line, but they probably are looking to move out of there if they can. So they're trying to gain again some of that capital like the Lions would as well, and hopefully we can get somebody that we look at as one of our top picks instead of them. So
I mean, to throw it back, we talked about if you can hit on a round one quarterback. They haven't proven they could yet, but they didn't sign Darnold. They have all this extra cap room, so they could, if they draft well, they can use the free agency,
yeah,
and they could be a scary opponent for the
and I
Lions.
think they're gonna be in the mix, right? I mean they did things that we weren't prepared for them to do last year, right? Everybody was picking them to be dead last in the NFC North, and they killed it, right? So they had 14 wins. That is, I mean, that's a solid performance when you come into it thinking that you're not going to be much.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. What a fun season finale
oh,
too. That was just that felt like another playoff game.
yeah, I mean, you look at all how we attacked Sam Darnold, got him off his spots, made him look human again, and kind of wrote the script for how they were going to attack him in the playoffs. But I just wish it would have ended differently a little bit for the Lions as we went into Washington came to us. So
Yeah,
that wasn't the end of the season we were all hoping for. So,
yeah.
but
So full circle here, week of the draft. As Lions fans, this used to be our Super Bowl. We've been doing a draft party together for almost a couple of decades now, and this was what I looked forward to like the most. And now it's like, you know what? I'm looking forward to the regular season, but the draft is so much fun, especially when you are the Lions and you have a pretty complete roster. And if you can get a couple pieces just to push you over the edge, we're very, very close to picking number 32.
that's the hope. That's the goal, right? That's our dream is to pick 32. And this year it's a little bit different. We're still getting used to picking so late in that first round. Usually we're picking top 10. Remember picking two with Hutch and trying to put our team together, or picking Panay early on in that draft, and those were fun times, but this to me is even more fun, right?
Yeah.
You're figuring out that draft board. You're putting together grid indexes. You're looking at RAS scores. You're trying to find the guy that's going to fall to the Lions and who the Lions are gonna want to go after. Are the Lions going to move up in that first round and do Brett Holmes things? Are they going to move back and gain capital? It's just, I mean, it's exciting, right? I mean, Brett Holmes talks about it's a movie, right? You're going to get your popcorn, sit back, watch the draft. Like, we can't just do that though. We got to speculate. We got to put our draft boards together. We got to figure all these things out before it happens. But it's still entertaining when it does happen.
Yeah, and gone are the days, the Matt Millen, we're just going to pick the brightest, shiniest object. And you knew that, it was going to be a Roy Williams, or it was going to be a Charles Rogers, or a Brandon Pettigrew. Uh, or, yeah, it was just, those were the days, it felt like the mock people could say, this is what the Lions are going to do, and they would do that. Now you got Brad Holmes. He's moving up, making unpopular plays in the first round. He's moving back. He's trading, he's negotiating, and it's a lot of fun because you can't go to the bathroom when the Lions
Right.
are drafting, right? You don't know if they're going to pop into that spot or pop back.
And when a guy falls just within reach, they're going to get their guy, right? They're going to do. They're going to go up and get their guy, whatever the cost or whatever the position, right? I mean, you hear that positional villain stuff go through Brad Holmes, and you hear the let Brad Holmes cook, and we do have trust in Brad Holmes because he's done so well those past 4 years. So
And they're feeling themselves too.
they
You could
are.
tell they're talking with Moxie. There was just an interview. 20 minute interview with the director of scouting, and you can tell they have a methodical process, and they believe in it. It's like they're counting cards at the casino, and they're playing this hand.
And show me how it hasn't worked yet. There's a couple guys here and there that have question marks, a couple guys that are not on their roster right now. But right now, I mean, the Lions have starters. They have guys that are still in the league. They have guys that still have prospect or still have worth. They have guys that they have drafted that are still in this league, and most of which are still in the Lions.
Yeah. And we talked about paying guys. You got Kirby Joe. You got just they're tried and true guys on the roster that are impact players that are going to get really good second contracts, which is the main reason we talked about not being able to go out and get the veteran that wants the big deal to glue them into the Lions. The Lions aren't in a position to do that unless you're willing to part with some of the guys, with a Kirby Joseph or a Jamison Williams, um, Aiden Hutchinson, somebody that's coming up on contract because we paid somebody else, which doesn't sound like a great deal.
It doesn't seem like a great deal. Now, I mean, the draft is going to tell us a lot on what their plans are for some of these future guys. I mean, if we go out and get a Malachi Starks in that first round, that does put up some question marks about Kirby or Brian Branch. And you know what we see here in a few days on Thursday is going to tell us a lot about some of our plans. So
super super excited. So what I want to hear from you, who's your draft crush? And then who do you not want the Lions to take, beyond the obvious, like Shedeur Sanders, but like who's getting mocked in that position that you're like, hey, I really don't want the Lions to take? Who's some of your favorite picks in the past the Lions have taken, and who are some of the Goster Charlises or that you really just want to have that pick back? I mean, I remember when Mike Evans was on the radar and we took the tight end. There's been so many moments where I just like wanted the Lions to have that pick back. It hasn't been as recently, but we want to hear from you. Leave us our first comment. Leave a comment in there. Send us some feedback, what you want to hear after this pod is over.
Hey, we really appreciate you following us in this journey. We're just getting started. We do need your feedback to figure out what we're doing right and more likely what we're doing wrong. And we want to walk through this journey together. So
if you're still watching this dang thing, subscribe, like it, do something. Be our first like, be our first subscriber besides me and besides Brian.
Hey.
Welcome to the community, man. Let's have a little bit of fun. This is meant to be fun. We're here for you. Just two football junkies wanting to pod with you and talk about the game.
Appreciate you guys. Hey, cheers.
Cheers.